What is up guys, I do hope you're well as always, and thank you for joining us today. If you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe button and maybe the notification bell. And as always, joining us on Discord, we'd love to have you there. Now let's get started. I don't care if you're a bridesmaid, I'm taking your bed so me and my kid don't have to sleep on the couch. I have another story I can tell, and I'll post if this does well. Here's a little background for this story. Last year in July, a cousin who's on my mum's side of the family was getting married, and I was given the opportunity to be one of her bridesmaids, to which I happily agreed. This came with a wave of introduction from other girls in the wedding party, about 9 others in total. It was a huge ensemble, and a long dress rehearsal. Since the wedding was a few hours away from us, my mum, my brother and I stayed at my uncle's massive house for about a week, which included 3 bedrooms and had a finished basement with a room inside of there as well, plus a rented camper outside and other air mattresses in the basement. There are about 4 or 5 different families staying in the home, including our EPG and EK, so it was rather crowded, but never crammed. For every day except the night before the wedding, I voluntarily slept on the couch in the basement. Now onto the story. EPG, entitled Parent Guardian, EK, entitled Kid, MM, my mum, MA, my aunt, MA, EPGM, Aunt entitled Parents Guardian Mother. It was the day of the dress rehearsal, as well as the night before the wedding. After the rehearsal, the ensemble met up with the family members of both the bride and groom at a park nearby for a gathering. About a few hours into it, the EPG takes EK back to my uncle's home because he's young, about 5 to 7 years old, and would probably be cranky if he doesn't get enough sleep. So my mum and I think nothing of the moment. The party goes on a little longer than expected, so my family and I arrive at the house about 10:15 PM. Tired out, I grab my sleepwear and head upstairs towards my aunt and uncle's room, which my mum and I were promised for sleeping arrangements because my aunt wanted me to get my beauty sleep and my mum a good night rest for once in her life. She has sleeping problems. I walked down the hall and opened the bedroom door to find a head popping up. I mumbled an apology and dashed towards the bathroom in the hall and locked myself in because I couldn't think correctly. I thought a stranger was in bed and began freaking out. I began calling my mum frantically to tell her what I saw. She came in to check it out for herself, and what I thought was a stranger was fucking EPG. To call my mum pissed would be an understatement. She was furious. She brought EPG into the hallway so that she wouldn't wake up EK and began to chastise EPG for taking our sleeping arrangements. The argument went something like this. I didn't hear all of it, but this is what I heard. EPG, you're sleeping in me and Ollie's assigned bed. So? MA promised us to be in this bed. There are other places to sleep. EK wanted to sleep here though. No, EK is known for getting his way and will throw a fit if someone defies him. I felt his wrath before. EPG, did you know that we're supposed to be here? No. This is where MA and EPGM steps in. She's an 84-year-old woman and has a zero tolerance policy for bullshit. What's going on here? MM woke me up to get me and EK out of our bed. Ollie and I were promised to sleep here. EPG innocently. I didn't find any suitcases on the bed. MA had had enough. She told me and my mum to sleep in my cousin's bed, which was a full-size bed, relatively smaller than my aunt and uncle's king-size bed. EPG gave us a smug look and sashayed back into her room. Defeated, my mum and I sulked back into my cousin's room. It didn't help that my uncle's dog was sprawled at the bottom of the blankets, so it was not only uncomfortable to sleep on my side for 7 hours, the room smelled like wet dog and I woke up often. The next morning I woke up to find my mum, my aunt and EPG drinking coffee at an island counter in the middle of the kitchen. EPG smiles at me and cheerfully asks how I slept. Gritting through my teeth I replied to her with, I slept amazingly, I feel super energised, and walked off to make myself breakfast. Though I didn't sleep well throughout the night, I had a great time at the wedding. Eventually my aunt found out about what EPG did and was extremely pissed and told her she should be ashamed of herself for doing that in front of multiple family members, including the bride. Apparently she didn't know that my mum and I were supposed to sleep there and left early so she could take the bed. Although I didn't get my revenge, my aunt humiliating her was all I needed. I'm allowed to touch your bum. 2 years ago I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and I went to counselling through my university. My therapist helped me realise the main source of my depression is my father. I also learned that I can say no when I'm uncomfortable with something, and I can say it to anyone. Duh. My parents visited me one weekend and we were making lunch when my father decided to touch my butt. That makes me uncomfortable, please stop that. I'm your father, I'm allowed to touch you. Please don't touch my bum, I kinda don't want anyone to touch it. My father got mad at this. When you were a baby, I wiped your ass. I have the right to touch your bum. You probably bathed me too, so why don't you touch my breasts? He looked confused at this. I'm not some sicko. He started calling my mum forward so that he can get another person to go against me with him, but she doesn't want to get involved. Before he could get physically aggressive, I ran to my room and closed the door behind me before phoning the university services to file this issue for a possible future case. He burst into my room and demanded my phone when he saw it against my ear. He grabbed me and tried to take my phone from me. He's really big and quite strong, has hit me before when I tried defending myself, so I'm naturally scared of escaping. My mum was across the room just standing there, and I tossed the phone at her so she can catch it, but she didn't even try. The phone just shattered. Before they left abruptly, my father proceeded to tell me how useless I am, and that I'm wasting his money, and that I don't respect him. I kept quiet. They left and phoned me that night, saying it's my fault that I ruined the weekend, and that I must sort myself out. I should stop being provocative. My therapist said that I treated the situation quite well, but I'd like to hear from you guys what you would do in this situation. Oh my god. It's abuse! It's child abuse, surely. I'd get that guy arrested. Sounds like an arsehole. And obviously the mum's in some distress because she wasn't helping you out. The guy sounds like he's an abuser of some sort. What do you guys think on this one? Hockey EP causes over $10,000 in damage to a hotel, then blames the hotel. Back by popular demand. I worked as a front desk supervisor for a hotel for 3 years, and as I mentioned in my last post, hockey parent EPs were some of the worst. The worst team to visit was from California. They were affluent, cocky, and inconsiderate. Already that week, there were altercations with staff of colour and other hockey parents, and we were glad we quarantined them to the top floor, away from other teams. The last night of the tournament lined up with a big fight on pay-per-view, and the EPs were slowly filtering back from the sports bar down the road. I was on late shift at the time, and the head of security, we'll call him Don, and I were laughing. It was almost peaceful. Around 11 PM, we get a call from a frantic guest, saying their bathroom light was raining. I sent the engineering team up to the 5th floor, and a few moments later, he calls on the radio that he needs Don, and the other 2 engineers immediately. Then the kitchen manager radios saying that part of the ceiling collapsed and water had flooded into the kitchen. Another call rang from housekeeping, saying the exact same thing just happened in the laundry room and break room adjacent to the kitchen. All the flooding reports were from the same wing of the building, and we just renovated the rooms on that side. We were concerned something happened to the water pipe somewhere during construction, but the head engineer wouldn't be back until morning. We get another call, this time from a businessman on the 8th floor. Water was flowing in his room from the hallway, and Don heads up there. Don comes back down about 30 minutes later, furious and soaked up to his shins. One of the California EPs got wasted, then decided that he wanted a bath. He plugged up the tub and turned the nozzle on high. He then went to sit on the couch and fell asleep with the water still on. Based on the timeline talking with the other parents and EP's son, who left the room when his dad came back drunk, the tub had most likely been running for hours. The EP was still plastered, and Don left him up there in the care of a fellow hockey parent so he could decide what to do with the general manager in the morning. I gave the rundown to the overnight staff and told them that I'd be back in the morning to relieve them. It's one of the few times I was glad to have back-to-back close open shifts, because I could see how the whole story played out. The next morning, the GM and head engineer were still racking up the cost of the damage, but it was easily over $10,000. He damaged recently renovated rooms on floors 8 through 4, and once it got to the 3rd floor, it followed the wiring pipes through the walls down to the kitchen, laundry room and lifeguard break rooms, where it busted through the ceiling. There are safeguards in the hotel to deal with occasionally overflowing tub or toilet, but the volume of the constantly running tub was enough to overpower the system. It was up to me to get a copy of EP's ID, and get the GM when he arrived. EP comes down, 2 hours after checking out time, his hair well done and wearing a Rolex on the side of my head. I knocked on the desk twice to signal my front desker to get back up while I talked with EP. When I asked for ID, he got ugly. There's no reason you need my ID. I'm afraid there is, sir. I've been instructed to get a copy for our records, as there was some significant damage during your stay. EP leaning in, laughing smugly. Look lady, if your shithole can't withstand a little water, that's not my problem. I build hotels in California. One that makes this place look like a crack house. I know for a fact hotels are supposed to have systems to prevent flooding. Yes sir, they do, but in this case, I know what you're doing. I know you're only doing this because I make more money in a minute than you will see in your entire life, but you don't want to go down this road with me. I just smiled politely, and reiterated that he needed to hand over his ID. Then the GM came whipping around the corner. He relieved me to go on a break, but I heard the GM say, "I'm trying to handle this civilly. If you want to make this difficult, I'm sure the police would be thrilled to accommodate you. I know they filed a claim with insurance, but I don't know much of what happened after that. I hope he paid for every penny." Oh my god. I didn't know that hotels have some sort of system in place for flooding. How does that work? How can you, like, prevent flooding? Surely if it's going through the ceiling, it's going through the ceiling. That is crazy. $10,000 and he might get away with it. That's insane. Anyway guys, as always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Take care now. Goodbye.